This video is for my critical assignment on gait development. Now, there are major changes in 4 stages of life. During early childhood is when you see the most major changes. Around 13.8 months, pelvic rotation becomes prevalent. Around 16.3 months, knee flexion is more obvious. And around 17 months, foot contact with the increasing basis support is more prevalent. And then around 18.5 months, heel to forefoot striking is more prevalent. And then between 1 year and 2.5 years, the swing phase speed increases. And during childhood, the major changes you would most likely see is increased strength due to increased leg length and better range of motion at the hips, knees, and ankles. There's also increased velocity of walking and running, which is the most obvious as you always see kids running around, laughing, have a lot of energy. And during adulthood, the most changes depend on the person. It's affected by weight, strength, balance, and injury. The higher the BMI, the more likely a person will walk the waddle because the lower limbs have struggled with holding all the weight. And the greater injury, the more likely of a person walking with a limp. And as the person gets older, the stride length shortens and there's reduced pelvic rotation, ankle extension. And it's more likely that they will have toed out in comparison to younger adults. And then there are 4 main theories and principles relating to gait. There's Newton laws of motions, and his first law is that there must apply a force to a stationary object to move it, and apply force to move object to change direction. The second law is the amount of acceleration an object has is proportional to the force and inversely proportional to its mass. The third law is every action has equal and opposite reaction. And then stability and balance. Stability is resistance to movement, and balance is the ability of an object or person to maintain equilibrium. Now, increasing stability doesn't always mean increasing balance and vice versa. But you can add to stability by keeping the center of gravity low and within BOS, which is basis support. In locomotion, you have to sacrifice stability in order to increase mobility. For example, runners, they're extremely fast, but as they're running, if you're able to push them over in that perfect moment, they will fall over because they are not very stable. Force absorption. To increase impact of reaction force, they must either increase the amount of time impact occurs or increase surface area over impact site. And it's a important principle to avoid injury when trying for max performance. If we don't have force absorption, we immediately fall over. Say we jump and we come down with our legs straight, it's easier to hurt ourselves or fall over versus if we come down with our knees bent, we have a softer landing. Open kinetic chain is another important theory. An open kinetic chain is maximum effort, involves more body parts, and sequential movement of these body parts. And then 2 essential elements to open kinetic chain movements is, the first is optimal sequence of movement is possible, so is the movement itself even possible, and the timing of sequential events, because if you have the events out of order, it's going to look funny, it's just not going to work. There are also several abnormalities that a person could have. During early childhood, kids tend to have wider basis support, rapid cadence, shorter steps. This is all because they're not very well developed, they're still trying to get used to their legs. And the 4 common abnormalities they also have is in-toeing, which means the feet turn inward instead of forward, out-toeing, which means the feet are turned outward instead of forward, and limping, which is asymmetry of gait. They also can experience toe walking, which means walking on the balls of toes and have no contact between the heel and the floor. This increases instability. During childhood, it is more likely for a child to have a quicker cadence. They're prone to falling frequently. Extremely difficult to get from the floor to standing, so usually they would need help getting up because they're not used to using their leg. And 3 things are also common. Toe walking, which means walking on the balls of toes and having no contact. In-toeing, which means their feet are turned inward instead of forward. Out-toeing, which means their feet are turned outward instead of inward. And most of abnormalities within adulthood are related to slower cadence because we're distracted or injury. But it also is quite often we are deviated medially to laterally with each step, and there's also a possibility of limping due to injury. During adulthood, more people are likely to have decelerated cadence, bradykinesia, which is slow movement, inability to move body swiftly on command, and limping. This is all due to aging and instability. And there are also certain constraints related to each person. During early childhood, a perceptual one is called first child syndrome. Now, this isn't a disease, but this tends to happen to the first child of parents. And the first child's mother or father less likely to put their infants down and on their stomachs for a long time because it's their first child, they want to protect them. And a physical constraint is slower development due to mental impairment. Now, during childhood, a physical restraint is that parents don't let their child explore. Now, I get that they want to keep their children safe, but if you don't let your child climb and throw things, they're not going to develop as well, like their muscles won't be as strong as they could. Because this could be a great constraint because children like to climb and grab things differently, which allows them to strain their muscles. If they're not allowed to do this, this could lead to hypotonia, which is a lack of muscle tone, which then leads to delayed motor development of basic tasks such as standing, sitting, and grasping objects. A physical constraint for adulthood is weight. Now, during adulthood is when the weight tends to fluctuate the most and not as stable. An increased weight also means increased burden on lower extremity joints. It doesn't allow for quicker cadence because the body's can't move as quickly. And muscle strength also plays into it. Lack of muscle tone, this allows greater weight bearing and less stable base of support. This isn't to say that if you have less muscle or more muscle, you're going to be more stable. But if you at least have some muscle tone, your joints can hold greater weight and tend to be more stable. Now, a physical constraint for older adults is reduced muscle mass, which leads to less stable base of support, and the cartilage within the joints tends to not be as strong, so they can't hold as much. There's also inefficient oxygen intake, which leads to slower movements. For example, many older adults can't move as quickly or they get out of breath faster.